Hello, everyone. This is Cherie Jones, and you are watching Woman to Woman. This is a new endeavor for the Women in Ministry Initiative at Princeton Theological Seminary. We'll be having conversations with different women in ministry. And today, my guest is Ruth Ame Belloni Rosario Bevins. I'm so excited to have you with us. We're going to be talking about the unique challenges of age, accent, and ethnicity. And so Ruth Ame, welcome. I'm so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Cherie. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored for the invitation, and I'm just happy to have a conversation with you. It's a good excuse to see you on camera and chat. So yes, I welcome that.
Yes. So the way we came about this topic of age, accents, and ethnicity is I asked Ruth Ame what's her area of interest, some areas of interest that we could talk about. And she mentioned just the challenges of being a woman of color in ministry. And then she said, and you add in onto that being young and having an accent, serious challenges. So I said, okay, you know what? Age, accents, and ethnicity. Let's talk about it. So to start, I would love if you could first just kind of share a little bit of your call story. You coming into ministry as a woman. You are, you said you identify as Afro-Caribbean, right? So Puerto Rican and Martinique. And so how was it for you acknowledging your call to ministry? Was that affirmed by your family, by your church family?
Yeah, thank you. So I received a call when I was 13 years old. My call to ministry came when I was 13 years old, actually at camp. And I fought that call with all that I had, because I'm third generation Presbyterian, and I come from a lineage of strong women. And one of my aunts is the seventh Hispanic Latina woman to be ordained in the PCUSA. So I knew the struggles and the role that she went through. And she was second career when she did that. So I didn't want that for me. I also knew the struggles that my grandmother went through as a pioneer in paving the way for women in Puerto Rico to be leaders, to be ordained as elders and deacons and all of that. So I knew firsthand the struggle, and at that time, at a young age, I just did not want that for myself. I wanted to run away as far as I could from that. But God, that's not what God wanted for me. And like my mom said, God separated me for ministry when I was a year and a half old, and we were in church, and I just went to the altar when it was open, and she said that I just, this little thing, just stood up, went to the altar, got on her knees, prayed, and she was there for a long time. And she says that she felt a voice, something tell her I'm gonna do amazing things with her. So, and I just came back and to the bench and I never said what I talked to God about or anything. She just had a sense of calm that, I was of God. So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, kind of like the call to ministry. And I fought it to the nail. Even when I went to college, I wanted to be a lawyer. I just, I wanted to fight, in a different kind of way. And when it was all ready to go to law school, God said nope. So God sent a woman to my home church in Puerto Rico to preach that day. Now you might think that that's not something that it's of consequence, given my family lineage. But the church that I grew up with, there were no women that would come to the pulpit. The pastor was really adamant and protective about the pulpit. And I would hear him, women, he was just suspicious about women. He never said women are not supposed to be in the pulpit, but I would never see a woman in the pulpit. So that particular day, she came and preached and talked, and I said, I received that, like, that voice, that nudge, like, in the Presbyterian world, irresistible grace that said, you, seminary is now, not law school, seminary is now. And being stubborn, I said, no, I'm just gonna go check seminary out. I'm just gonna go to the Seminario Evangélico Puerto Rico, and I'll just take a class or two while I study law school. I can have my cake and eat it too. And God said, look, lady, you've been fighting me for a long time, but so you think you got this, figure out, but I have something for you. So I went with one of my mentors to the Seminario Evangélico Puerto Rico, and he gave me a tour because he used to be a student there, and I fell in love with it. And I said, no, just forget law school. This is how I'm going to, advocate and fight in this world. And my pastor was insistent that I go to Princeton Seminary. In many ways, that was his dream, because he came from Cuba. So his dream was to go to Princeton, but because his English wasn't very well, he didn't get a chance to do that. So he said to me, you're going to Princeton. And the entire session rallied up behind me and said, you're going to Princeton. And I didn't want to, because who wants to leave Puerto Rico, a beach girl, to go to cold, freezing New Jersey? Nobody, exactly. So there's definitely got to have to be a call. So God said, and the church and the pastor rally behind me. My pastor said, look, you're going to do ministry, and ministry can sometimes be lonely, but regardless of that, it is best for you to leave the comfort of your surroundings, the comfort of your house, the comfort of your church, and do ministry. When you surrender completely to God, that's when you know that you're ready to do ministry. So, so he recommended me, and I said, it's okay. I know I'm not going to get in because Princeton is just for smart people. So I'll just apply to Princeton so he can leave me alone, because it's being recorded. So otherwise I would have used another word, but leave me alone and we'll just do it. And I applied, they gave me a scholarship as a Presbyterian. And I said, okay, I'll take that as a sign. And I went to Princeton. And I think the rest is history. I got a call to minister to pastor a church in the Bronx, New York. And from there, Princeton Seminary called me invited me to apply for a position in the admissions office. And since then, it's been administration. So I've been doing ministry, like preaching and women's ministry and young and youth and young adult ministry and administrative ministry pretty much since, oh my goodness, since 2004. So yeah, for a long time. Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting. Our paths are kind of similar in some ways. Right? So I thought I was going to be a lawyer.
I can see that too, see?
Right? Because as a kid, I talked so much, right? I always was just talking.
Me too.
People go, you should be a lawyer, because people say, you talk so much, you should be a lawyer. So I was like, yeah, I should be a lawyer. So I studied law, was like doing pre-law stuff in college, interned at some law firms, do some connections.
Wow.
A woman in my church who was an attorney and she, got me internships with different law firms. And being that close to the practice of law, I realized I didn't want to do law. I didn't want to practice law. And so I ended up going into child advocacy. Development stuff, child advocacy stuff. But the reason originally, doing the law thing, it's like, okay, because I can talk, right? God's going to give me something where I can.
Yes.
And so years later, when I finally acknowledged my call to preach and I decided to go to seminary, what I realized was like, okay, I had a narrow view of how God would use my gift.
Yes.
I'm thinking because of, me being talkative and somewhat
Mhm.
argumentative and doing debate teams and all that, I was called to law, right?
Yes.
But God called me to preach, right? And it's another
Mm.
way in which I can use my
Yes.
And so I
Yes.
think that's just so interesting how, God, we have a view of how God is going to do it,
Yes.
how we are going to use our gifts, but God has another plan.
Exactly.
I also
Exactly.
know that you have a legacy of women in ministry, but even with that, you still struggle. And
Yes.
for me, my struggle was more so, I just didn't know why God would be calling me, right? But hearing your story is more so because of the struggles you witnessed, those matriarchs in your family having ministry, you didn't want to do it. So I'm wondering, how were those women in your family, your grandmother, I think you said your aunt, how did they support you throughout your ministerial career?
So that's a good question. My mom is the number one fan, the number one supporter, and she's the one cheering me on every step of the way. Every single time I cry for various reasons. I used to call her on the phone and say, look, I'm having this, or before I even said it, she would help me out. She would, till this day, she will send me scripture passages, or she will remind me of things that I wrote, and she will keep track of sermons. One of the things that mentioned, and I'm just remembering because thinking of my mom, the pulpit is one of the places that I feel most comfortable with, not because of the exercise of preaching, because that makes me extremely nervous, but it's just something about the pulpit that makes me comfortable, and it's because it's all bets are off because it's not about me. And so my mom said that she always reminds me of that kind of strength. And since I was a little girl, she said, you never were afraid of the crowd. So yeah, and she would say, look, I remember when you were 6 years old in your kindergarten graduation, you were called to pray. And, you were I was a little taller for my classroom, but I went into this big pulpit, it was a huge church. I went into this pulpit and everyone was, kind of shouting. And I stayed there, like she said, for 30 seconds until everybody was silent. and then I said, let us pray. Obviously in Spanish, but and then I prayed. So she's always been the one reminding me every time I think, oh, Mom, I can't do this. I can't. Oh my goodness, these people are really crazy. She's the one who says, oh, remember this time. And, I saved all of your sermons, writings, everything. And she would go, oh, remember this? Or she would just send me an email or a text and say, and just send it. And then she would go and say, remember this? Who wrote this? So I got to support me. My grandmother is the one that I would say instructed me in the path of faith. My mom was always working to provide for our family. My grandmother was staying at home with us, and she and I would have all kinds of conversations. She's the one who taught me how to get up early in the morning and do devotions. The first thing that you do is, read the Bible, pray, and the last thing that you do when you go to bed is the same thing. So she's the one who taught me the foundation of devotional life and faith, and talk about many things. There's this little girl with, at that time she was in her 70s and 80s, and he was, talking about everything, and so she taught me a lot. And the other thing is she was very strict. So church was very serious. My mom taught me the same thing. I was always an athlete, so I was always in a court, like basketball, volleyball, with different teams. And my friends will tell you, Sunday it was church. So either I had to arrive late at a game or something, but church was important. I learned all those values from the women. And then from my aunt, she's the one she's the one who has taught me that you say what is in your heart. She's the one who's taught me there's no advocacy should not have any price, so if something is wrong, you have to speak up. And she's always worked like by the rules until the rules don't fit, until the rules oppress other people, then it's like all bets are off. But seeing her along her journey has always inspired me to go against the current, when people say you're not going to make it, when people say you're not enough, when people judge you because of the way you talk, because of the way you look, she's the one who's inspired me to not care, not care because God is the one who has called us. So, so just in those ways, yeah. And I got others, I got other matriarchs that helped me, but I'll just stick to those three for now.
I love that. So you were a contributor to a book called Streams Run Uphill.
Yes.
Written by Mahi Kim Court, who's also a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I know there was a collection of essays that you helped co-author, and it was "Where Are You From? The Struggles with Racism." And I really wanted to allow you to share in terms of your inspiration for being a contributor to that book.
So Mihi gathered a lot of us. Oh my goodness, this was a long time ago. I think you said 8 years. I can't remember because I just feel like I'm a different person.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm a different person now. And Mihi was, you can tell now from where she's at right now. She's always been someone who is curious and looking for more answers, no, this is what you're telling me is not enough. Okay. So, and she's always been like, let's collaborate. So I think if I remember correctly, she said, oh, let me just invite different, women with different experiences into writing about racism, from an Afro-Latin, Afro-Caribbean perspective. That chapter has another Puerto Rican from New York, and who is light-skinned, but also shares her experience with racism. And Mihi herself, Mihi as well, sharing as that. So the inspiration came because to write that particular piece, I was working at Princeton Seminary, and I was also taking a course, I think it was critical race theory with Mark Taylor. And that class just gave me additional language to articulate past experiences and current experiences at the time, with my encounters with racism and ageism and ethnicism and all the isms. So that was kind of like the inspiration to write that, and it just made it gave me additional language to articulate what my past experience and the current experience at the time. So when she invited me to write, I was like, oh, this is perfect because I've acquired this language. I've had more opportunity to reflect not just on racism, but on colonization and the effects and the impact of colonization, which racism it's a part of. And that's how I came to be. It was wonderful. It was another way to self-reflect and get to know myself. And then, but more importantly, give voice to that part of myself that I, just sometimes I don't get a chance to express. So that's kind of like where the inspiration came from.
So even though that was 8 years ago, I'm wondering what types of challenges you've experienced. Has anything really changed, since you wrote that, as an Afro-Caribbean woman in ministry, what are some things that you still see? There's still more territory to conquer for us. And so what can you identify from your experience?
I think a lot of it remains the same. I think the part that changed is that I've grown. I in many ways, I'm not that girl, that young woman. I should not say girl. That young woman that wrote that piece. It doesn't. That doesn't mean that I'm not validating her. On the contrary, it's just that because of many of those observations and points that I brought in that article have remained the same. I've acquired more tools along the way. I've acquired more tools of self-care to deal with that racism and to not let it consume me. So if a lot of those things remain the same. Those observations, colonization hasn't changed. Puerto Rico is still a colony. Martinique is still a colony. I still struggle with, not as much as I did 8 years ago, but I still struggle with what I call there the colonized mind. Of am I, it's not even am I enough? Am I being given a chance? Because I'm truly, my gifts are truly seen and celebrated, or am I given a chance, quote unquote, a chance because of I check up a box and I look good in a brochure and I can bring money to whatever organization is hiring me. So those thoughts are still, kind of permeating in my brain, but I've acquired a lot more experience. I've gone through a lot more pain through the past 8 years to make me stronger and say, no, yeah, you're good. Like in the words of my husband, you might have to cut this, but in the words of my husband, you're a bad mofo. So, you're creating the image of God. So, it's okay. Yeah. So if I were to say something that had changed from 8 years ago to now, it's I don't need the affirmation that comes from the colonized mind. I know my worth, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses or my areas of growth, and I've accepted that I can't do everything, and it's okay. But period. I'm good, and I'm celebrating the gifts that God has given me, and I've learned also to be humbly grateful to God for the gifts that God has given me and celebrating this and say, no, you're actually pretty good at this. It takes a person with a lot of strength, resiliency, intelligence, receptivity, and huge dose of the Holy Spirit to get where I am and to endure all the pain that I've endured, so yes, this is me. And, here I come, and I'm not gonna apologize for myself anymore. I don't have to. So that's the part that has changed more. That changed, if I can say something changed, it's me on the outlook on life. Than the actual experiences. The experiences that I've named there have only increased. The more, as women of color, the more you are confident in the gifts that God has given you, the more racism, the more pain, the more struggle you come your way. So.
That's so interesting you say that. Because I, in my opinion, I think, and I love that you said, first of all, like, you no longer seek the approval of the colonized mind, right? But in my experience, in my professional career, I think people are often intimidated by a confident woman of color. And they will find any reason to oppress you or hold you back, right? And I'm learning this now in retrospect. I see that has happened to me in so many instances. I recall when I was at Princeton, in my senior year, starting to look for a job, and I can't remember the name of the place, which is probably for the better, but there was a local religious institution in Princeton, and they had like a director position open, and they were doing work at the university. They had some things they were doing with the students at the university. And the job was really perfect for me because I had all this experience even before seminary, doing very similar work with high school students. But now it's like, okay, I can easily make the transition to work with college students. And it was really like with the college freshmen, especially, right? And I interviewed with middle-aged white guy, and he was, really complimentary about my credentials and all that. But he blatantly said to me, he's like, my only struggle is, to have a woman be the leader, to be the head of this department, almost like like the head of the organization in some way.
Okay.
And he was like, and Paul said that women should be silent in the church. And
isn't the church? I'm kidding. This ain't the church, brother. So it's okay. I'm kidding.
But, and I said to him, it's like, well, that text is very misunderstood, and most people cannot even they can't say with 100% confidence who Paul was speaking to. Was it just a group of women who were causing a disturbance? Was saying it to all women? I said, but then there are other scriptures that say, I said, and Joel is like, I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters will prophesy. So, but he wanted to hold on to this Paul thing. And I'm like, so many times as a woman, particularly women in ministry, we have to constantly validate why we're qualified. We have to give so much more evidence. And to this day, I'm like, the church and religious institutions are the only entities in this country that can blatantly discriminate against people because of sex, sexual orientation. He said that to me. Like, this is why you're not going to hire me because I'm a woman.
Privilege at its best. Because you're, he was counting, you're not going to say anything, and he can get away with that. So, yes. And it is true. Scripture has definitely been used to Scripture has been used as a gatekeeper instead of the image of the table, which is there's always room for someone else. And that's what Christ did. There's a table, please, even the person who betrayed him, there was room at the table for him. That is the church. Even when I disagree with you, the church, the body of Christ is come to a table. Let's talk. We don't have to agree, but at least respect one another. But church people have said, no, I'm going to use the Bible, the scriptures as a gatekeeping. So I'm in, you're out, you're in, you're out, and completely turn over what I understand Christ wanted in the first place. But anyway, I'm not the New Testament scholar, but I will tell them that. So yeah.
I love that you said that, using the word as a gatekeeper. I say people weaponize the word.
Exactly.
They use the word of God as a weapon against people. So very similar, but I love that, not looking at it as a table where all are welcome.
Exactly.
Keeping people out.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so you were talking about how scripture is being used, and so for me, I don't recall scripture being used. Let me say this: I don't recall people quoting scripture to say you can't preach. although there was one person, one white male, this was maybe a couple of years ago, that, similar to what you said, I just remember this, that had issue hiring me because he was more I don't want to use a little conservative. He believed that he had an issue with same-sex relationships, and I did not. So, but the issue came on conversations about inerrancy of the Bible, and again, just labels and things that I guess human beings don't have anything else to do, that we're just going to come up with things to fight for instead of all the things that we have in common. But that's another story. The point is that that was the only time that someone has used the Bible in general to say, no, I can't either hire you, or I can, do this because I disagree with you theologically. The problem for me has been church people discriminating against me. Like, if the most hurt that I've experienced in this lifetime, and I'm 40 years old, has been at the hands of church people, particularly white women. And, I know this has been recorded, so I'm gonna make this disclaimer. So for those of you who might feel offended, I'm not talking about you, because, for some of you who have not met me or encountered me, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about my own experience. And my own experience is the people that have been hurt the most has been people in the church, within the church, and has been white women, white Christian women. Those are the people that have intentionally harmed me, unintentionally harmed me, or whatever. And that's the most, that's been the most, pain that I've endured in terms of racism, particularly ageism. That's the one that, ageism and the accent, those two are the ones that almost always comes up. It's like, I get things like, oh, like, aren't you so cute, or, oh, like, oh, you're young. I'm like, no, no, lady, I'm not, I'm like, I'm not young. Like,
I'm young, I may be young, but I'm grown.
Exactly. I may be younger, but I'm not young, and I think the latest incident was a member of our board here, in a committee. She said, oh, let me give you a motherly advice, and again, for some of you who are listening, you might say, that's nothing, right? But if you are a woman of color within the age range of Sherry and I, you will know that having an older white woman telling you in front of your employees and colleagues, let me give you a motherly advice, it does not come from a good place, okay? It comes from a place of, let me tell you, because I feel superior to you, let me tell you what you need to say, what you need to do. And when I pressed her on it, she said, well, I'm old enough to be your mother. That was her response. And there was no apology, no anything, completely respectful. But again, that's just the way they get away with things. And again, I'm not bitter. I'm sharing this because within the WIM, as I think about this, there are women of color that have experienced these that have gone through these experiences. And depending on where you are, depending where you minister, those stories are not validated. Those stories are like, oh, don't worry about it. That's just a small thing. But I just want to tell you, if you've gone through experiences like that, I want you to know that is not a small thing. I hear you. I've gone through your experience, and there are women that you can talk to. So that's why I shared. So, but I got plenty others that are worse. I'm just keeping it PG-13. So yeah.
I'm sure you have. We all have a lot more stories
exactly.
that we tell, if the cameras weren't rolling, right? But you talked
yes,
about
exactly. Yes.
Ruth, I wanted you to share a little bit about your experience in terms of being a woman in ministry. We already talked about that, but with having an accent, how have you encountered any kind of discrimination or challenges because of your accent?
Yeah, so that is actually a huge thing. So let me tell you very quickly. So I've experienced it from English speakers, or predominantly white people. When I speak in large gatherings, they say to me, "Oh, you spoke very well. Like your accent is very good." What does it have to do with anything? Like, if I had a different accent, would that, would that have less of an impact on the word that God has brought for everybody? The one thing about accents that really it harms people is when you show up with a quote unquote accent, because again, they're the ones labeling as accent, is that they believe that somehow you don't know what you're talking about. Somehow because you have an accent, then therefore your level of education, cannot pass a certain point. And then when they hear I graduated from University of Puerto Rico and I graduated from business seminary, it's like, oh. And I've got some people, not that this doesn't happen often anymore. I don't think it has happened in the last 7 years, but it used to happen. Like, oh, you went to Princeton? Like, do they hire people like you? You mean like intelligent, smart? Yes, they do hire people. but I mean, they do accept people like that. But that's the most harmful. And now here in Texas, is that one is the one that does the most harm. It's like people can't really understand the fact that having an accent, people can't accept that you can be at a level of intelligence with them, or even more because you have an accent, or because English is your second language. They look down on you. They feel superior because you have an accent, or because English is your second language, or anything like that. So that's one of the things that I've learned. I know 2 languages. I'm learning a 3rd one. And how many languages do you speak? Because it's been more than proven that your brain is it's actually more expanded, and you're more intelligent if you know more than one language. So scientifically speaking, I would say that I'm smarter than you are, but right, but that's between you and I. I don't say that to people. I'm just saying. When I may start, there's some people
you have in your back pocket, just in case.
Oh yeah, because there's some people that you're like, ooh, should I put my other cheek, or maybe this is the time that Jesus is entering the temple to
turn over some tables.
Turn over those tables. So yes, that's why I keep it in the back of my mind, just for those instances where like, no, this is some turn the tables moment. So, but yeah, that's what I want to share about the accents. It's people just think that because sometimes I say, oh, how is it that I say this word in English, that somehow that makes me lesser than, or less capable, or less able, or less qualified to do that. That has happened as well. I can see people when I'm in interviews, or they would go, people don't say that. Let me just say this, because, and then we'll wrap it up. This is what people will do. They would go like this. Let me just show you. They would go like this. I'm like, and I know, because I know what they're doing. I'm like, I know I'm able to communicate. So I know I'm being clear, but you have to tune your ears to something that is, to a sound that you're not accustomed. And again, that's part of the privilege. If you're not surrounded by, if you don't put yourself out there to listen to different rhythms in the way people speak, then you attribute it to, oh, I just couldn't understand you because of your accent. No. There's no one single accent, and there's word is called world Englishes. So there's research out there that it's now world Englishes or variations of English. So what the United States considers the English or the accent is no longer there. So yeah,
with an accent, because I'm from Brooklyn, right? People tell me
everybody speaks with an accent. Exactly, but that's actually like now like a discipline in academia. There's no longer one English. It's just world Englishes, because we're recognizing the variation in the rhythm of how you speak and how you pronounce things. And as long as you're able to communicate and be able to be understood, then that's fine. So yeah, so it's fascinating. Yeah. But
you know what? I think you said something really good in the essay you wrote for Streams Run Uphill. You said, knowing my story and acknowledging both what is beautiful and difficult added so much to my ability to minister. And I think, what you shared really demonstrates that, right? Because having all of these experiences enables you to connect with a more diverse, a greater, I guess, span of people because of the diversity of experiences that you've had.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Another way that I've shared this before is since I check so many boxes, I never fit in. I never fully fit in any of those groups or boxes. I'm Puerto Rican, but my father is from Martinique. So, sometimes Puerto Ricans will claim me as a Puerto Rican. I mean, many times, actually, that's not true. Many times, like my friends Puerto Ricans say, oh, you're Puerto Rican, you're Boricua, right? When I go back now, and I go back with my husband, it's like, oh, you speak Spanish? I was born and raised here. I mean, like, born, raised, went to college, work after college, Puerto Rican, okay? So, but they see the color of my skin, and then they see me with my husband and speaking English with my husband, and it's like, oh, so you're, one of them, so I never fit in. I never fully fit in a box. So I think that's one of the blessings and curses of how I show up in ministry, because I know the difficulties. Again, since I don't fit in, since I don't fully fit in, I know the pain of not fitting in. I know the pain of being an outsider. So, even when, so I try to, I do my best to provide that space for people and say, look, you want to be who you are, then, even if it's just for 5 minutes, you can be who you are. And that's one way that my patience has been able to be to build, because I'm not a very patient person, but that's one way that that God has say, I want you to experience that, because it's the beauty and the difficulty of that. And then on the same token, because I don't fit in, then I get to experience all kinds of all kinds of people, and then I see them for who they are. I don't get stuck on, oh, she's white, or she's black, or that person is queer, or that person is conservative, or that person is whatever. I always give an opportunity. Yeah, where I draw the line is disrespectful. I don't care if you're polka dot. When you're disrespectful, that's where I draw the line. But so yeah, it's just beauty and difficulty. But but I just also want to share that it does take a toll. It requires a lot of prayer and centering, meditation, because I outpour myself for everybody, but the only place that I can find where I can be my full self, like then in terms of not labels, it's at home, obviously, with my husband, but, God, God is the one that in those spiritual moments, I can be, I can put all that into God. So again, it's beautiful, it's difficult, but it's extremely rewarding, because you get to see people, you get to give an opportunity or offer an opportunity to people to be who they are and not judge them or anything like that. So, and I think it's because I long for that, to be with human beings that can, aside from my husband and my family, and close friends, that's, but, wouldn't it be nice to be, oh, I just show up and that's it. But then again, because I don't fit anything, then, you can't just say, oh, this is just who you are, which brings a lot of questions and a lot of pushback from people. Yeah, because when they can't just say, oh, okay, so you're Black, but then they hear me talk, oh, you have an accent, where are you from? Oh, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. Oh, so you're Spanish. But wait a second, aren't Puerto Ricans light skinned? And yeah, so, and then you go from there, and you are an executive vice president. How old are you? Well, does that matter? So it's just like, it's constantly pushing people's labels and boxes, and you can see their brains like,
They explode.
So,
they can't fit
exactly.
into a box. It's like, throw the box
They
away.
can't.
It doesn't, I can't be packaged into any one carton.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's
And
again my
guess what?
superpower and my kryptonite, I guess.
Yeah, listen, I find myself being very comfortable making other people uncomfortable. So,
Like that.
and that's, you know what? I mean, that's just it. I
like that.
comfort in making you uncomfortable. I'm seeing you try to figure it out.
I like that.
Enjoy yourself.
Take this as a spirit moment. This is a Holy Spirit moment. Yes. You're growing. I'm being blessed, so although both of us are being blessed. So yeah, I like that. I'm gonna use that. Yes. I already took notes of it mentally. Yes.
You talked about where you are right now. So you are the vice president?
Yeah, the executive vice president. Yeah.
The vice president at the Presbyterian Pan American School.
Yes.
And I am happy to work there with you, as you've hired me as a
I know.
biblical studies teacher. I've been enjoying it, being on remote with the students. You have a very unique student body, because your students are predominantly immigrant students from what I can gather is Mexico, Rwanda, and Korea. Right? I don't know if there's any other regions. I know those.
Yeah, we have China and Hong Kong. Yes, we have China and Hong Kong. We have China and Hong Kong.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are there co-leading this school with your husband, my friend, Reverend Dr. Gordon Govins. And so, as a clergy couple, I'm wondering, how does that work for you? What are some of the costs and benefits of being a clergy couple leading this school in Kingsville, Texas?
I know. Yes,
African American male, and you are Afro. Wait, no, not Afro-Caribbean.
Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latina. Yes.
How does that work for you guys?
So let me start with, let me say this, it's a lot of fun, actually. I mean, there's a lot of challenges, and I'll get to that in a second, but it's a lot of fun. I don't think a lot of people get the opportunity to kind of go on this adventure, with your best friend, someone that has your back all the time and you have his back all the time. It's funny because people tend not to respond very well to that. It's like they're always trying to say, okay, where can I put a wedge between them? What can I say that I can, see, I got something that, instead of celebrating. That's actually being very interesting. And, I mean, I know the cameras are rolling, but we've had a lot of fun with that as well. Like, okay, like, see, here he comes, you know? And so we just know ourselves well enough that we're like, okay, this is coming. So you take this one. I'm tired. He'll say, he'll look at me and say, it's your turn. I'm tired, you know? So, but it's a lot of fun. This is enormous job. I mean, it's layered, like you would not believe. I mean, you and I have talked, so you know a lot of it. It's complex, and one person cannot do it by him or herself. So the fact that God has given us this opportunity for the two of us to collaborate and work together is just amazing. You know, we see each other grow every day. And we get to pick up each other every day. So you know how sometimes you're trying to communicate to your spouse, okay, this is what happened at the job, and today was just horrible because X, Y, and Z. And your spouse is very empathetic, and but he can't quite understand, and vice versa. They'll come and tell you this and this and that, and you might have an idea, but it's not quite. Here we don't have that. There's certain times that we're like, you know what, I don't have to finish that sentence because you saw, and I don't have to say anything because you saw. So it's like growing with someone that you can trust, and then vice versa. You can't really, it's not about the marriage, it's about the relationship that we build, because we could have been best friends and not be married, but if we had this relationship, then we would have been able to do what we do. And and if we didn't like each other and we were married, then we would not be doing it. So it's not about it's not about the signing of the paper. It's about this relationship that we've cultivated and committed to each other, that us, God comes first and then us, and as long as we always remember that kind of order, we'll be okay. And and I'm not saying that we're perfect. I'm not saying that we're drinking wine every night or peaches and cream. No, there's plenty of challenges, because God. So now I'll go to a little bit of the challenges. God called us individually, and then God brought us together for this ministry. So it's a constant reminder of, we're not here for our egos. We're not here for the accolades. We're not here for, Ruth May is great, or, Gordon is great. No. We're here to serve these students, to provide these students with the best education, the best spiritual environment that they can, where they can flourish and they can blossom. And that is a humble experience every day. It's not about us, it's about God. And and we're like, right, it's been a year, it's gonna be a year now, and we don't even like remind each other. It's like, that is about God. So there's some pain, there's some tears along the way. There's many tears along the way. But it's just, it's phenomenal. I think the two biggest cons of doing this together is that you're doing this together. So like your table conversations about this, like, someone like either me or myself will wake up in the middle of the night. Oh my goodness, I have to do this. Oh, can you, what about this? Okay, I have this idea. And you're like, okay, just need a break, or he'll need a break, so that is it's a blessing, but at the same time is like a huge con, because you have to be more intentional about the self-care, which brings me to the second huge con, which is where we don't do as much as self-care as we're supposed to, and because we're working together, then we're like we know we have to take self-care, but we'll say, okay, tomorrow, I don't know, we'll just go to San Antonio. And then in the middle of the night, one of us will wake up and we'll say, oh, you know what? I got this idea and this needs to happen, or we need to meet with someone because, we're constantly strategizing. So, a plan that, oh, let's go to San Antonio, turn into, oh, we have to meet this person or this person. So, one of the biggest cons right now is, we have to provide self-care. And, we've actually talked about it. We're like, look, I need self-care. And he says, yeah, I need self-care too. So what do we need to do to provide that for our relationship, because even though we know that the Holy Spirit is within us, we're like, no, it's like Jesus. I love you, but I just need, can I just go to this quiet place? Just need to pray, And then, the people follow you, but just for 2 minutes, I could just let me be so I can pray, recharge, and then, but it's, but I have to say it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Oh, and I think one con more is, like I said before, is people get intimidated and jealous by it. So they'll throw all kinds of things. Oh, they'll throw all kinds of things, and again, they will play on the race, the stereotypes plays on an African American male and a Black woman. They will play on those, like, oh, they would say, oh, she doesn't have a thought of her own, on the stereotype of like, oh no, black males are strong, whatever. Anyway, like BS, but they will play on those stereotypes. Oh, she spoke to me, she was angry at me. No, I just asked you to do your job, so those
right,
kind
for
of
a woman of color,
and
oftentimes I think women in general have that, where we can't be assertive because people interpret our being assertive or having a strong sense of self as being aggressive. Aggression when it comes from a woman, but if it was a man, it's like, oh, he's just being assertive. So a woman of color, then there's another line we have to toe, because then it's like, not only was she aggressive, I felt unsafe.
That's exactly what they said. That's exactly what they said. Oh, I feel unsafe, really. So yeah.
And those are things that we still see. People, some people are not aware, or they just have blinders on and don't see that, but it still does happen. It still happens today. But what I wanted to say to you, listening to what you're saying about being a clergy couple, and my husband and I have a similar dynamic. He pastors the church, and I'm an associate minister at the church. And it's something we still are learning, is establishing boundaries, right?
Yes.
So because I help in some respects to the ministry. We don't want conversations when we're like relaxing and in the bedroom, maybe watching TV or just chatting. Every conversation can't be centered around church.
Exactly.
So we have to, sometimes I'm like, okay, we can't, no more church talk. Like,
thank you. Yes.
Like, can we not bring the church into the bedroom kind of thing? And not, but just,
I hear you.
Like,
it's like time out, please.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's part of self-care as a unit, is establishing those boundaries that, yes, we are working together. Our marriage one is a ministry, but we're working in ministry. But at some point, we have to draw a line and say, okay, we are done with church ministry stuff, work ministry stuff. Let's deal with the ministry of our marriage. And now,
I like that.
And the reality is that you will be better in those other arenas if you take a break and be able to replenish yourself. Because we can't serve from an empty vessel, right? So the next time you two plan to go to San Antonio, go to San Antonio.
I know, right? Amen. I'm
the strategy, that's the treat, that plan you got, you schedule that for the day after you come back from San Antonio.
Yes. Actually, we're planning on going tomorrow. So yes. So, amen. I'm receiving. I'll say to him, Cherie told us, I receive it. So we have to stick to our plan, okay? So Yes, that's exactly what I was saying.
It's easier said than done, but it's like we have to practice.
But we have to.
Because otherwise, it's similar to the conversation we were having before we started. Like, telling my daughter, if you keep letting someone pick on you, you don't ever stand up for yourself, they will continue. The same thing in terms of if you don't ever establish boundaries or teach people that there are boundaries, right? With, okay, I'm off the clock now.
Thank you.
See me tomorrow because I have to handle the other ministry
in
my life that does not include you.
Exactly.
The person ministry that I have to focus on. It's the one person ministry I have to focus on. You're not welcome in this space, right?
Exactly. Yes.
But it takes a lot for us to get to that place where it's like, I am important too.
Yes, it does get to. I mean, and that we can have like full hour more conversation about how we are socialized not to put ourselves first, as women of color. So, but yes, completely receive it. And I agree with you. We need to, say no, hasta aquí, se acabó, we need a break. So yeah, I get it. Yep, I receive it. Thank you.
Right. So I have enjoyed this. I know we have to wrap up, but I want to do I want to ask you two questions, a little small exercise. Right?
Yes.
So I want to give you one word, and I want you to tell me the first thought that comes to mind when I say okay. Ministry.
The first word that comes to mind, hope. That's the one that came to mind. Hope. Yes.
Okay.
Hope and joy. Yes, I couldn't figure out. Hope and joy. Yes.
More than one word.
Yeah. Hope and joy. Yeah.
Woman.
Roar.
Okay. I like it.
Strong.
Strong.
Yeah.
And the church.
Messed up. Yeah, that's what came to mind. Messed up.
That's powerful. Okay, so the last thing I want to ask you to end on a lighter note. So I am all about thriving, right? A whole bunch of stuff about thriving, thriving against all odds. And I think a powerful tool to help us to thrive is nostalgia. I've learned that when we have nostalgic memories of good times of the past, it helps to relieve stress. It gives you a sense of optimism and hope, right? And so keeping all that in mind, I'm wondering if you have any childhood pleasures that you enjoy, or maybe now you'll think to enjoy again. So for me, I'll share with you one thing that I love is I love jumping rope. And so actually, if it's not raining outside, I'll probably go outside with my kids a little bit later, and because they're still trying to learn how to jump rope. So that's something that I love to do. It just takes me back to my Brooklyn days and Bedford and my Blackstone house outside in front, jumping rope with my friends. So that's one of my pleasures. So what is a childhood pleasure that you enjoy still?
Oh my goodness. Now my brain went to jumping, brincacuicas, how we say it in Puerto Rico. I got so many. I mean, even with the struggles, I love my childhood. My family was very, very close. My siblings and I, even though, typical fight here and there. I guess I remember sitting at the table with my siblings and my grandmother playing board games. Like, I don't know if you have those in the United States, but we play all kinds of board games in Puerto Rico. And cards, playing cards. Gordon and I sometimes play board games. We make it more into like adult rules, but we play games. One thing that I picked up is drawing again. Drawing, like painting. I like doing that when I was a kid. And like I'm picking up more. The other thing is that I spend a lot of time on a court, like basketball or volleyball, and so like here, because we're at the school, like we get to do that with the students. So that's actually pretty cool. And then Gordon and I get to like shoot hoops every once in a while, and then he gets to speak trash and like, oh, you know, and I was like, where are you going? You know, so that's a lot of fun because it reminds me of my childhood. It reminds him of his childhood as well. And that's another thing that we can do together. But yeah, and I used to love the jump rope as well. Did you ever did the
Double dutch?
The double dutch. That's how you say it in English. I used to love that as well. So yeah, just like I guess staying active, board games. I wish I would be closer to the beach, which we're about 45 minutes, and then we go sometimes early in the morning to catch the
sunrise.
The sunrise. Yeah, I was trying. How do I translate that? Sunrise. Yes, the sunrise. So yeah, that's those are the kind of things that I do. Yes, and you know, of course, I can't end this call without talking about Bootsy Collins. So yes, Bootsy Collins, our dog, is a Great Dane, 115 pounds, 11 months old Great Dane, and yeah, so I was super afraid of dogs when I was a kid. And then here I am in my 40s, being in love with a little puppy, with a gigantic puppy. So he fills our house with lots of mischief and love. So as for those of you who know who Bootsy Collins is, you heard right. The name of our dog is Bootsy Collins. Yes. Right. And I did not name him. It was my husband, the one from North Philly, an African-American male. He was the one who named Bootsy Collins. Yes. And he's just like Bootsy Collins. Yeah. It's just like Bootsy Collins. Yes.
I absolutely love it. Well, Ruth, thank you so much for joining me on the first episode of Woman to Woman. Yeah. This has been a phenomenal conversation about accents and ethnicity. Thank you. Back again with another wonderful guest talking with women in ministry. But Ruth, thank you again. This was
thank you. Thank you very much, Sheree. It was wonderful to chat with you. And thank you all. Our blessings.